At you with a little bit of Star Trek Strange New Worlds talk today. And today I'm getting in front of the camera because I don't have time to clip up some bullshit from Paramount and Strange New Worlds. So unfortunately it will be a little low effort. I'll be reading off the scripty. Here we go. But I'm going to give you a breakdown, a little bit of what I liked about the first 3 episodes. I'm going to try and keep it quick. Through 3 episodes, I've enjoyed most of what I've seen. I like the sets, the uniforms, the sound designs, the ship designs, the color scheme. It's all working for me right now. Feels more like Trek and I like it. I think they made a really good move switching back to a more episodic format and getting away from some of the serialized stuff as we've seen in Discovery and Picard. I think this is going to serve the show very well going forward. First 3 episodes each featured a couple of classic Trek ideas. Seems like so far this Trek is going to avoid the hyper-violent and nihilism of Picard and Discovery, which again I think is a great idea. I think those tones and those concepts put off a lot of OG legacy Trek fans from watching those shows going forward, and I think this is going to be a good way to get people to come back into the Star Trek fray. The first episode was titled Strange New Worlds. We featured the Enterprise crew heading back into space after some downtime and a personal tragedy for Captain Pike. They've got to go pick up number 1. Her ship has gone offline, or she's gone missing. And we get the first exposure with the original version of the Prime Directive called Starfleet's General Order 1. It's a good start. It puts, for those of you not familiar with the Trek model, the Prime Directive or General Order 1 is like a policy of non-interference. Starfleet and the Federation don't typically allow themselves to go tramping around the galaxy, imposing will and different cultural ideals on new cultures. And this it felt like a really familiar spot for them to start with that idea. We get exposure in this episode to the Enterprise coming across a society that's kind of like 21st century Earth-level tech, like they haven't developed warp technology yet. And they have to resolve an issue where, unfortunately, based on some of the outcomes of the Discovery series, this culture acquired warp tech way too early, and now they've built a bomb out of it instead of a warp drive. So they got to sort that out without interfering. And the one thing I didn't like about the episode so much is that they kind of give Spock the character rewrite stuff again. I don't get it with these guys. It seems kind of simple. Spock's an easy character to write. He doesn't do the human emotion spectrum like we do it. So opening with him in the middle of like a romantic love scene is probably something they should have skipped or maybe held on to till later. Episode 2 was Children of the Comet. Felt again like classic Trek. You get a situation of the week. It was an Uhura-centric episode, which was kind of cool. You get a little bit of her backstory, some of the challenges that she faced in her life before Starfleet. It was pretty cool. They do a pretty good setup and payoff in the episode between her and Spock, which I thought was kind of cool. Her basic play for the early part of the show is going to be she's at Starfleet, and I just whacked my own mic, that was cool, that she's at Starfleet, but she doesn't know if she really wants to be there. So Spock, being the logical one, just kind of posits, hey, if you don't want to be here, maybe you should bounce and let somebody else that wants to be here be here. So she's got to set that kind of stuff straight in her own head, which was kind of cool. The payoff is kind of nice. It brings her and Spock a little bit closer together by the end of the episode. So I thought it wrapped up kind of cool for that. The episode specifically deals again with what they're now calling the Prime Directive, because they had to rebrand it after calling it General Order 1 after episode 1. This time it's got a twist. The main concept of the episode is that there is a comet that they go to discover is about to run railroad through a planet that has kind of a primitive humanoid settlement on it, or a civilization, and they're trying to figure out if it's a violation of the Prime Directive to interfere and move the comet. Of course, it's a violation of the Prime Directive. That's the whole point of having the Prime Directive. They're not allowed to interfere with a species' natural evolution, intelligent or not. So they go through their Star Trek stuff, and they figure out that let's just go check the comet out. We're going to see what's going on down there. But when they do, they come across a different species that's the caregiver, guardians of the comet. This species is much more technologically advanced. Their firepower way exceeds the Enterprise's shit. So now they got to figure out if they could move the comet out of the way. Should they? But if we do, now we're also going to get into a run and gun battle with something that's going to obliterate us. So they got to fix that. They got to sort all that stuff out, and we get into a little free will and determinism kind of stuff. And it felt like Trek. It felt like a bunch of episodes from back in the day, from TOS, DS9, TNG. It reminded me of that tone where there's the one level problem here, but then boom, there's another problem up here, and we got to resolve them, and we got to get everybody out safe. It was decent. I didn't hate anything that I saw in episode 2. It was probably my favorite of the 3. And then episode 3 was Ghosts of Illyria. It hits the three-peat, the trifecta, the holy trinity, whatever you want to call it, of feeling like old Trek in terms of story. This one deals with the unique pathogen that gets brought back up to the ship, because every Star Trek series has at least one episode with that. While Kirk and Spock get stranded, where Pike and Spock get stranded down below because of an ion storm that prevents their transport, some shit like that. So you get the A story is the pathogen on the ship, and you get the B story, which is Pike and Spock down below, dealing with unusual inhabitants, possibly intelligent in the ion storm. Kind of cool, definitely reminded me of old Trek. This episode is Una-centric, that's number one. Though we don't know why until the end when the mystery unravels. The episode is the weakest of the 3 so far, in my opinion, because there are 2 major plot reveals that kind of really undermine everything Starfleet related within the show. A couple of minor contrivances and several really low-level gripes, but it's still not Picard bad, so I did still enjoy the episode, despite the revelations that came at the end. One in particular comes so far out of left field. If you had been at the game, you'd have probably taken the ball to the face and had a massive lawsuit against whichever team let the ball hit you in the face. I don't know. It was pretty out there. And so here we do have a couple of sticking points, because it wouldn't be a Winter Wolf Den video without me having a couple of gripes. What did I mark down here? None of them are enough to put me off the show. I've enjoyed every episode so far. It's much more fun. I think it's better entertainment value for my dollar than Picard or Discovery and Lower Decks and Prodigy, which I only watched one episode of. But anyway, a couple of gripes with the show through 3 episodes. Nurse Chapel and Ensign Ortegas. I don't know what it is, but every time either of them has a line of dialogue, my brain just tunes this show out. I think with Chapel, she's too chipper or cheerful or something, and she doesn't feel like the doctor or the lead nurse on a starship. And Ortegas, I haven't figured her out yet. I think I'd rather see her on a show like The Orville, because she's obviously here as like the comedic break of the tension. But I'm trying to go back to the Treks I grew up with. There was TNG and DS9 mostly. Who's the comic relief on like TNG? Like Picard telling Wesley to shut up? Like it's not a recurring theme to have like the laugh out loud stuff. And then I guess on DS9 you had Quark and his brother Nog, getting knocked around. I guess that was kind of the comic relief there. But here, every time she shows up, her dialogue is written like it's meant to be spoken by a character in 2022. And it doesn't work. Like she's throwing out catchphrases like, "Hey, whatever tweaks your freak," or some bullshit in this episode. And I'm like, what is this? Like, no, be like an ensign for Starfleet. Like, be like, figure it out. Just be better. Second thing, Hemmer, the albino Andorian engineer. This dude's just obnoxious right off the rip. He's capital D dickhead, actually. The gruff condescending pomposity bullshit really only works when you sprinkle in a little bit of self-loathing or even a little bit of genuine compassion. You need that to offset you being a dick. And literally every time you've shown up through 3 episodes, you've been a dick. Stop being a dick. Nobody likes a dick. I guess some people like a dick. But this dude needs to stop being a dick. And then number 3, there's something off about this Trek. I hadn't figured it out at first. It's abandoned the hypervigilant nihilism of Discovery and the idiotic season-long narrative of Picard, which are both very necessary things. There's something not quite right here, and it took me some thinking, but after episode 3, I think I really sorted it out. This is very much a Star Trek produced by writers who came up in a feelings-first, safe place, stunning and brave, speak my truth kind of world. You see this in how they resolve episodes 1 and 3 in particular. You see this particularly in the resolutions of episodes 1 and 3, wherein the solutions and revelations involve breaches of the Prime Directive on a level that it's irreconcilable in my head as a Star Trek fan. I won't spell the how or the why for the characters, because they are major reveals for the 2 characters they involve, the one being Una and the second being Dr. Mbenga. But rest assured, if these violations of the Prime Directive that they committed had occurred in like TNG, like these officers would have been probably formally reprimanded, suspended, or maybe even discharged. There was a great episode of TNG back in the day where the Academy flight team, Wesley and his team, engaged in like an illegal stunt. There was an accident, somebody was killed, and after all the cover-up and the legal proceedings, like they booted the captain of the flight team because he owned up to the idea being his. So there's a very real penalty for acting outside of what Star Trek law entailed. We're not getting that here. Here, what we're getting is every time somebody steps outside the law, their action is considered courageous and inspired and creative and worthy of celebration and defense. Nobody's going to be made to answer for any of these decisions to any chain of command. Though in number one's defense, it was her idea, like, she's the one that actually tried to take accountability, and it was Pike that forgot how Starfleet actually worked, right or wrong. Like, the rules and the laws are there. A captain of a flagship, even of the flagship, is still beholden to the chain of command. So if his first officer is, by the very nature of her existence, a violation of Starfleet directives, there's an entire council of admirals that kind of overrank him or outrank him. So there wouldn't be a thing where he can just sweep under the rug. It lowers the stakes for all decisions, conflict, and situations going forward. But thankfully, none of these things are really reasons for me not to watch. So at least for now, your old buddy the Winter Wolf is going to keep watching Strange New Worlds. I'll try and review it as I go week to week. So until next time, the Winter Wolf is going to set the course for episode 4 and hit it.